Oh, we've got Jeff, it looks like.
So does anybody not have access to the agenda?
At the moment. That's all.
I'm wondering if I think we're only gonna be able to do that.
What do you mean?
We can't show the agenda, so we'll just
Oh, okay.
announce what
Yeah.
the different pieces are.
I can throw the agenda. What do you mean?
Just to project it.
Just share your screen. I can
Yeah.
share my screen.
Oh, I can share my screen. I would just. No, we do not want to update them.
Jeff, did you see the notes?
No.
Linda is down and out. We're hoping it's not COVID, but she is probably not gonna join us tonight. So I'm pinch hitting and I'm running on fumes myself.
Oh,
I hope they're good PMs.
No, they're not. I mean, my dad passed a week ago. I started school and I had a tenant from hell who left the apartment that I have to re-rent out on Sunday, like a complete disaster.
Oh, gosh.
That's my life.
so we are live on YouTube to sort of right now.
Let's stay. I'm glad that's on YouTube.
No, no,
Anita will be coming. Let me just see if she's having problems.
we can. I think there's like a weird audience like that. So here we go.
So who are we missing? So first off, we do need somebody. This is gonna be a challenge because facilitating and taking minutes at the same time will be a challenge. And I don't know if I can do
Great
it
minutes, by the way.
from last time.
Yeah.
So we have Jeff from abroad. We're just gonna say Zoom. And yeah, Tom. Last name?
Zumwalt, ZUMWAL.
And
issue.
what? What did Jeff say? I didn't hear you. We didn't hear you, Jeff.
Anita's joining us, but she doesn't know where the link is. I'm sending it to her.
The only thing about having this is that since it is on YouTube, I've got to balance the viewing enjoyment of us looking at the agenda versus,
Yeah.
yeah. If you want, you can share your screen to this computer over there.
Would it be better if I shared it or?
No, but like we can use this one can be operated separately if you want, so you could just. This is only if you listen to everybody, but you could just, this is a wireless
Oh, I see what you're
monitor,
saying.
so. You know, for the people that are.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, the people we're missing from Rockport, I think I'm gonna just say it right out loud. We need to reach out to Andrew again because he's interested, but I don't think he's in the loop. Andrew, Daly. And so Andrew Daly needs an official invite. And he could be our alternate now. Because, so is there anybody who has connection with Andrew that's here in this room?
I know Andrew, but I'm not from Rockport.
Is that the guy that owns Side Country?
Yeah.
I mean, I know him. I don't have his number or anything.
I would feel comfortable preferring Andrew if.
Yeah, I
anybody
could,
else,
I could do that too.
I'm also not from Rockport.
Is he interested or?
He is.
Oh,
I probably should be the one, because we can also talk ski sale.
Oh, yes, Andrew's very interested. We assure you. We just need everybody to knock on his door.
Yeah, and so I'll talk to him directly. So we have right now from Rockport, myself, Kristen, Linda. Helen has stepped off, and our other person, which I'm just blanking.
Not Andrew.
No,
Oh, is it Amber?
it's a
Kennedy?
woman. Yes, Amber. Amber
oh,
Kennedy.
right.
So Amber, just making sure that she was in the loop. And Camden, we have Richard and Will, you're official.
Mhm.
And Jeff and Anita, I'm assuming that you're kind of in absentia, but still Camden, you're still official.
We have not taken any action to remove them from the roster, given their
Right.
address change, but
And Tom, Jane is.
We don't have an address change. We have the same
Oh,
phone
perfect.
number and the same address.
Okay. And
same
then we have,
voting place.
We just have another one now.
okay.
Also, a friend of mine mentioned today that she thought she was on this committee, but I've never seen her name on the list, Denise Robinson.
She'd be great.
But I mean, she said that, I
I,
don't know, she just said that. she
I've never
had-
seen her.
heard of her.
She had, yeah,
Denise is.
You-
she said that she gets the minutes by email. but
Oh,
that
lots
she
of people
had
get
never been
minutes.
Or something.
okay,
I don't know, I mean, she.
I
might
think
not
like
even-
50 people get the
I don't know that
minutes.
she's interested, I'm just saying, she thought that she was on it, but I've just never seen her name.
has she ever gone before the town select?
See, I don't know,
I think that's the
I didn't
key.
mention that's where I was going.
Denise would be
She said,
really
"Oh,
good
I'm on
for
that
it."
committee." And I was like, oh,
Okay,
She probably gets, Jeff sent some minutes, like a lot of people that have expressed interest in
Oh, maybe
the
so.
topic in the past,
maybe.
are on the, you know,
Yeah, there's
Broadly
about 50
interested list.
people on that list, so. yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The idea of
So-
that list, and I don't know if we want to continue it, is to keep people engaged at some level in what's going on so they can
Yeah, that's great.
continually, yeah.
working for Denise apparently, so.
so to honor time, let's stay focused. We don't have a long agenda, but a couple of the items are probably pretty meaty. And please keep me on track if I diverge or I seem to drift off. So just some old business. We've got bike racks. We've had some, I know where we have some of them. There've been some signs to not park on the street side, and that, do we have any update of how they seem to be responding here in Camden?
Well, walking into town, I see bikes there, but not a lot of them right now. So that's all I can say, and I was going to put photos in of the smaller ones. That would just be a post, with a little circuit thing, but that's not in there yet, so.
But that's a proposal to add
That's a
some.
proposal.
Great. Okay. So Orion, Route 90, anything?
So we didn't get the NBRC grant. I got a meeting at the end of this month to figure out why we didn't get it, which was unfortunate. That we didn't get it. We did get approval from the select board last night for our TIF districts that we're going to pursue. So the residents in Rockport will be voting on a new TIF district fund. All the activities we're doing on 90. That's the only update I have right now.
Okay, so was there some money that was in the budget though for planning grant, or did that get reassigned or?
I've talked to John about a planning grant fund, how much is dedicated to this and what we're matching it with. It's not, I wrote it down, let me check. I think he said it was 10,000 that we had.
Okay,
That's what I recall.
I couldn't remember if it was 10 or 20 for some
That was
reason.
the note, it was 10,000 in the budget, that's what John said.
Was in that range. It might have been 10, 15, 20, but I thought it was a 10.
That money we could use to, go for grants, but I don't have there's not a grant right now we can go for. MDOT has their PPI stuff, for studies. That's about it right now.
Now, it looks like some paving is happening out Route 90.
Yeah, it's a little weird. The contracts, MDOT, their contract with the company is milling, and then there's skim coming, and then come back next year and either mill again and then pave. Or if the conditions are, they're gonna pave again. So,
So that's what that's the quick job is just to,
yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm just getting into this.
Yeah.
So what is the proposal for Route 90? Is it to cross over one on the, like between RES and Market Basket and then cross over and then go straight down? Is that what we're talking about?
So
That's-
I'm talking.
That's
all
not
things
entirely
90.
clear, I think is the short answer.
I'm talking all things 90 sewer expansion, everything.
Oh,
In addition
okay.
to that, it's sidewalks, because I think it's ridiculous. We don't have sidewalk going to the schools.
It's so close to the village though.
So the easiest way to do it, just because of the ledge, it's on the south side, is to go on the north side, so school side coming down and then cross over again to the RES side.
Mhm.
I know you understand that now. Okay.
So so there's been lots of discussions, like from the high school you cross over for all because there's a fairly large number of kids that live over in the Forest Glen area. And it may be that there's enough cut-ins now into Route 90. Because when the high school was built 22 years ago, it was a quieter road. And now there's a lot more cutoffs. And it may be that we could now have a temporary, like during, when school starts and school ends, there could be like a short-term little crossover so that kids could, cross from that area. And then we've got the Erickson farm, which has, interesting things. Like yesterday, the whole cross-country team went over and ran up Beach Hill, but technically, they're not supposed to because there isn't an official crosswalk. So it's figuring out how do we connect what's happening, not just, those pieces, the school and Erickson and all that, but there's also the access to all these other trails and things.
Right.
So how do we develop that and make sure that nothing happens on Route 90 that's big infrastructure that doesn't incorporate some sort of vision for enhancing accessibility? So there's nothing on the table right now other than conversations, because it all starts with a planning grant. And if we don't get the money, like the planning grant sets the whole vision, and it would include what happens with, sewer and, where do you envision the next 20 years, more cut-ins. And so a planning grant gives us that opportunity to put in what we would like to see, as well as what the town needs, as well as
Wasn't there some talk of a tunnel going under?
there were talks of tunnels and,
There've been tunnels, there've been bridges, there's been, you name it, it's been suggested. That's it.
Wow. No, that's it.
so,
Helen, can I ask a question?
but
the-
Allison's got the floor first.
Okay,
With the planning grant part of it, feeling that it has to start with the grant is to pay for a study, right? For plan,
Yeah, and I'd like to follow up on that. Are you talking about the planning grant with?
like having that be
MDOT?
the only
So
thing,
PPI, the plant partnership initiatives that you're talking about?
That was the grant that we were talking about initially.
and that would, the idea is that Rockport would get a large planning grant that would,
Some large, but yeah, there'd be a grant fund to pay for a portion of this, like a study.
so the other option, of course, other than getting a grant to pay for a study is to pay for a study.
Mhm.
Right,
Right, and they do matching, so, we could pay for a $50,000 grant, or we could come up with 50,000 and through the partnership have $100,000. Or, 25 and 50.
would it at some point just be easier than trying to get Rockport to apply for 5 million grants to like lobby the school to put it in the school budget or something, or like, no. I mean, it seems like,
I mean, for planning or for,
So for this aspect of it, I understand where you're coming from on this one. And I see what you're trying to say too. So we need to, if we're gonna go down that PPI aspect of it, we're gonna come up with a scope of what we're doing. So have you had any conversations before with NDOT?
yeah, and that was with both Patrick and,
And so did they make any suggestions to put together a letter to apply for anything? Or did they just kind of leave it open-ended?
well, they felt that the very first step was if we didn't have a planning grant, or if we didn't have a planning sort of umbrella, that it would be very piecemeal, and that the planning grant would be the access to all the state money, is what it
So-
sounded like. from them.
So not planning for PPI. So if we're going
Yeah.
in the NDOT realm of all this PPI. You have to have
What's
a
PPI?
planned partnership initiative. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
so they've got this, and in order to qualify for the larger funding, you have to have that aspect of it, the planned partnership initiative. One reason I know.
Orion, I wasn't at that meeting with Patrick, but I've been in other meetings with Patrick. And when he tips his hat to say, you should consider doing this and there's funding available, he usually has an idea of what that could be. It'd be, I don't know if you talked to him or what, but
Patrick is a new name.
he's
and-
Patrick
gone now,
Adams?
too. He went to the federal highway. I mean, he could still be helpful in some, but he's not at MDOT anymore, which is
Yeah.
devastating.
I know Steve Cole. Steve Cole's my contact for all of this PPI, MDOT.
oh
stuff.
no.
Well, the sense I got is Steve is very invested in the VIP and not invested in Route 90.
He's interested in the VTI. This is where it gets all confusing. They've got all these subsets. Yeah, they're interested in the village aspect of that stuff. In order to do the village aspect of all that, you have to have this PPI aspect into it.
How much would it cost to get a bike path or a sidewalk all the way from Route 1 down to the high
To
school?
do it from Route 90, on Route 90 from US 1 all the way to Highway 17 is, and this is if we do a very wide ADA compliant concrete pathway.
Mhm.
That's 3 million. That's concrete.
What if you just went to the schools? As like a first, huh?
Far less. That'd be-
Well, yeah, I was just saying, like, I mean, would it be done in stages, I guess,
You know, it would have to be phased out.
yeah.
Yeah.
You said they're 3 million?
So we already know how much it would cost? Does
I-
that mean
I got
that-
one.
Somebody's speculation, I suspect.
I will go and give us an estimate for it. Or an estimate.
And how difficult is it to get that much? How difficult is it to budget that in, like?
Even with all this infrastructure money, and I
Well,
feel
with the infrastructure money, then we have to have like a need for it, so obviously we can make a pitch for the school, outside of the school, it's a little harder to do. On Route 90.
And do we know anything about the latest round of funding, what the stipulations with all the climate, or I'm drawing a blank.
We gotta find a climate connection for that one, like some kind of wildlife benefit. If the wildlife could also pass over some kind of.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's also alternative transportation. You know, the question is, do you need some sort of evidence that there's gonna be more people if there's a safe way to move from A to B, that more people are going to partake?
So, question, Margaret, Margot. My understanding is summarizing what you're saying, and I might be wrong about this, is that in order to get a crosswalk, in order to get a crosswalk, and Rockport is not able to pay for it or its share, Rockport's share, we have to actually corral all entities interested in doing anything the length of Route 90, at least in the Rockport area, and to get them all to come up with what plans they want to make in the future for Route 90 in order to get safe crossing for students. That seems undoable.
I think this is
unrealistic.
more than just a crosswalk.
Well, we're looking for safe passage for non-vehicles. And then I'm hearing that a planning grant is needed in order to come up with a plan, which will require corralling all the different entities to come up with their plans, which is a very, very long effort. And it just seems like a backwards way of doing. I understand it makes a lot of sense from DOT's point of view, but from the point of view of community and safety, it's unrealistic. Something else, some other approach has to be taken than going all the way to the planning of sewers and stuff.
Well, I will be honest, hearing that Patrick's gone, because I think it was his way of saying, wink, wink, this is the way I can help you leverage money. And not having Patrick does seem very, very different.
He does have this, so let me, before I create panic, he does, I believe, have hold almost sort of the identical position, but at the federal level, and he has a replacement. So he came and gave a presentation to Camden recently about this light situation out here at Stop and Go and all of the ways that they thought they might be able to fix that. And he has, somebody, I'll find out who the person is, but it's not like they didn't replace.
Okay.
And it's not like Patrick has gone to somewhere in a world that doesn't care about him. He's still for this region, but just for federal highway stuff.
Well, it
So
sounds like that's maybe the next step, would be to reach out.
ask
to
his
Patrick,
advice, yeah.
right? And he might recommend, well, just go to my replacement, but he might say, well, let's sit down together with him, or,
Right,
but
yeah.
That seems like a good next step. So who knows Patrick? It sounds like maybe Jeff, you know him?
Linda and I have been able to contact him pretty well. But we may not have his contact information right now, but
I was gonna see, since we got something from him, I sent this to Jeff, but I don't think I sent it to everybody. It might be that he.
I have all his contact information. I'm happy
He
to
may
share
have
that.
indicated his replacement.
I've driven with Patrick around town. I've been on planning walks with him. Yeah, he knows who I am, or maybe he probably knows a lot of people.
and really, I think the only reason we were focused on this planning grant was simply because leveraging both state and federal money was better if you had a cohesive vision as opposed to a single project. So if we're looking at a single project, that's a very different, different framework. But if we're looking,
Yeah, I agree with Anita. It's frustrating if you want this one little thing, but this effort of going to DOT, and because it's a DOT road, it's a main artery for them, and to convince them it's almost a non-starter unless you have, this is what the big picture plan is, and this is how that crosswalk fits in. I think it's really hard. Plus, there's issues with speed there. You can't have a crosswalk with that speed, so we have to convince them to reduce the speed limit. And we also,
Patrick agreed that-
yeah.
Patrick agreed that there's been a huge amount of change on Route 90 in the last 20 years. And that if there's any region of the mid-coast that warrants a revisit of what's been going on, it's been that Route 90 corridor. And that was from Patrick saying that, there's been tremendous change, and it may actually, if we look at the data, it may actually require that we have speed reductions just because of the number of cut-ins and things like that.
How does it stand with Maria and talking with the schools about that? Where has that been left off? Where should we put that?
You mean in terms of a crosswalk or in terms of a pathway down to
Yeah,
Route 1?
all
or-
of that. Like, who's part
I
of
mean,
that
we don't own
conversation?
the
Yeah.
district doesn't own the land, so there's not much,
Okay.
What do you mean?
like.
I think-
we don't
I think-
own down to one.
There are two things. One is a question, and then perhaps an answer, Will, that I'm sure that Maria would be a happy advocate for improved pedestrian access to the school. When they were rebuilding the elementary school, they had a plan for adding a sidewalk out to Route 90, which got quashed by the MDOT, but it was in the plan. So she understands that and would speak in favor of it. But as Margot just said, it's not her place to go and start planning infrastructure in the town. She's got enough going on. The other thing was, oh shoot, there was a second thing. It was a question. Oh, sorry, I can't remember it right now. It was a question for you, Margot, about, but I don't remember. Sorry. Oh, it'll come to me.
No, that's helpful, Jeff, because there was a plan, it was quashed, as you say, but I think knowing where they are in terms of their interests and willingness to support it at some point, that would be good to know, so that's helpful.
Yeah, I think they would. I think she would. And it may not be her, it may be the principal at the high school and the elementary school principal.
I know when the school was built also, there was discussion of, bike path from the high school to Camden via the power line. And it's
Mhm.
actually made some of my kids think about, Vicky Dudera has invited them to work with her on legislation. I'm like, why shouldn't power lines become like automatic public right, public access, bike paths and things, but
That wasn't the holdup, though. The problem was, I think, political courage in Rockport. Was a couple private property owners. I made a whole folder I shared with everybody a while back. It was all the articles from back
Right.
when that Linda wrote most of the articles, but she'd maybe forgotten a little bit of it. But it was basically like the Goose River Golf Course was like not in favor, and Mary Spring. And maybe like another private property owner or something. It was like not a huge, it was things that would make you think today, well, a lot has changed in 20 years. And I know some people on the board of Mary Spring, and like, why would that be the thing that would stop it? I think there was doubt at the time about whether people would even use it and things like that, things that wouldn't be an obstacle today. But that was the original reason the Pathways Committee was formed. That's what it still says in Camden, is the like official reason for the Pathways Committee and the Jacobs Quarry Trail.
so there's
The
a
original
parallel.
reason was to get the path to the schools.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Wow.
so it goes like
Kind
behind
of seems like we should do that.
school, and it's like a straight shot right into Camden, but it does go through those properties. There may be a couple like ditches.
it was like where the power.
There's some areas that need significant
Oh, that path.
Oh, yeah.
earthwork to make it usable, but
But they made it really far before. They actually had, like they had done some of the work to plan it all out. They'd gotten a big grant, that and the Jacobs Quarry Trail too, but it was mind-boggling to me how much progress had been made on that. It would be great to just dig up anything that exists for those plans, and because I feel like the political will would be there now, at least for those couple obstacles that were identified at the time.
Golf course.
There was even a thing, a ballot question. It was around the same time that whole weird thing happened over in Linden Lane, where we voted on that. They voted, there was a question about whether to buy the golf course. Is that? There's they made it really far in the planning.
There's so much potential.
And the golf course has a new owner, right? Don't they?
I don't know, but it's highly likely.
I think there is.
Yeah.
Allison, why do you think there's political will now? And why do you think that would make a difference to the property owners?
Well, potentially, like in a lot of cases, there's literally already an easement going through their property. And it's. a
Why
lot
would
of
the golf
time-
course in Mary Spring be willing to do it now?
Because people would say that it was really important, and we have all these other, there are a lot more trails than there were at the time. It's like a model that works there. It's really highly valued by the community. I mean, how is Coastal Mountains Land Trust managing to do what they're doing? I mean, Mary Spring is donor supported, and I think a lot of people, I mean, I know a couple people on that board, I've never talked to them about this issue. I think the concerns were like protecting Mary Spring, but I think there are models in place now to protect land that people walk through, and so I mean, I just think there are a lot of things that people that were, there was that one meeting in Rockport where everybody got upset because like a couple of people voted against it. It seemed like there was this pivotal turning point where a bunch of people who had worked really hard on this, Paul Cartwright, got really frustrated because it was maybe both select boards at the time were just, it was the case where a few people would come into a meeting and say, I don't like the idea of a pathway, you know, and that was like, oh, well, if we haven't reached consensus. Whereas now, I don't know,
Well, are those housed in our drive, some of that information, or?
I'll send you a link to it just to see
That'd be
what's
good.
still relevant and what isn't.
And what I'll do is we can add it to this Google Drive, so it lives somewhere that we can all access. Although I would like at some point us to think about our towns having Google Drives that communities can work with, because
Camden has OneDrive, which is the Microsoft version of that,
We do SharePoint or the same thing. It's
Yeah.
Microsoft,
Office
but
365.
can it be, is it the same thing?
same thing, yeah, Office 365, SharePoint.
But that the two towns can
Oh,
co-share?
I don't think so. I think you do, Jessica.
Our bugaboo.
Oh, I'm not talking about that. Who's your IT? Is it
Oh,
different?
me, Jason from Harvard Digital.
Different ones, so their firewalls probably. flash.
Oh, but I mean, we share things. I mean, I'm about to send you guys all a OneDrive file. I set it up so that other people can add things. But the Google thing works well. You might be-
Except I own it. Somebody else, like,
Oh, I see. what you're saying.
somebody like in the town should own it, not me.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. Right, like if I'm gonna have a big problem if I'm not on the select board sometime and I don't have my account here.
Right.
I have like 9 gigabytes of stuff that but
So,
yeah,
so we're kind of moving, we're still old business, new business, but it sounds like maybe there's some interest here in looking at this thing of the past that wasn't ready, but maybe is in a more ready state to explore. And that's a whole different pathway connection between Rockport and Camden. But then I just want to make sure that I capture the key things, because again, I'm trying to take minutes while also trying to facilitate, and I have a fried brain to begin with. So I'm not doing a very good job.
So just for Rockport standards, if there's not a motion, you don't need to write it down. If you want to, you can, this is being recorded. But for the housekeeping item, just who's here, time of meeting, if there's a motion, who made the motion, the vote.
All right, thank you.
absolutely. The same thing with Camden. Yeah, you don't need to torture yourself.
Okay.
But also-
Wonder a little more, where would this cross Route 1? We're back to the,
Are you talking about
yeah. you
bike
managed-
path on the,
yeah, you managed to put in usually.
it would be a way to get from Camden to Rockport, not via Route 1.
No, but I mean, it's still gonna cross Route 1 somewhere.
No,
No. It's all in the
it's more like parallel to Park Street,
Park Street.
you know.
Route 1.
They're suggesting behind the school,
Right,
so Route 1, it would,
So I
wouldn't go
have a-
behind, it would just be behind.
that's there, see where the power line goes.
So I'll just send you guys this link to this folder.
I was just wondering if my daughter's friend can walk to school. She lives on Park. Kind of like at the intersection of Park and Alexander, and she said there's a trail that she can walk
Oh,
from
yeah.
her house
And-
to the school. So is that the same?
So that trail, the power line intersects that trail.
Oh, okay.
That trail goes under the power line.
And that trail is actually partially Ashwood's property.
And is it safe to bike underneath power lines?
Yes,
I mean, I guess we do it all day long, but aren't these like bigger ones?
These are not like mega power lines, but I mean, that's a
I'm just
question to
curious.
ask. Yeah,
But that's been looking.
I'm sure it's a question we would have to contend with. So just to reiterate, we're gonna contact Patrick, who's made a move to the federal position, to get some guidance about whether the TPI, PPI or the TIP, what's the thing that Steve is VPI.
Yeah.
So, or is it VPI? So whether they are competitive or whether one could help the
Yeah,
other.
so it's named village, don't think it's like villages and that's the village district, like they can be anything. So we have a village partnership initiative task force right now looking at, so we've got that bridge, the Goose River Bridge, it's on the timetable to be reworked, so we're trying to get into that process, so if it does get replaced completely, then we can incorporate some additional amenities on it, so an additional sidewalk on the other side. So that's why we have that task force focused at that. But they're identifying a scope on this side. They so far have not said MDOT, they have not said so far that we can only have one attempt at this. But this is also very new to them, MDOT. They don't have standards. If you read through it, if you look at their website, it's not strict enough as some grant applications are. Most grant applications have like their criteria only that they will fund. This one's pretty open.
So this could potentially extend out to Route 90.
Yeah. Cause I was asking them on this about the scope of it, how to define the scope, and they said they have some that are swaths of land. And then as long as it meets their needs.
Ooh, I remember my question, Margot. And it still relates to this conversation. Is there been any progress at the CSD or the SAD level for their master plan? There was talk about that.
I will tell you, a strategic planning is just coming on board, and I said yes, so I'm one of 2 staff members that are serving on that strategic plan, and that will be, so facilities and everything will come under that fold, so I would say not yet.
Yeah, so it's an element, Orion, of partnering with the school system. It perhaps may dovetail well with any kind of planning in Rockport too. If the school system is making some major shifts in their strategic plans too.
The question about the VPI and the task force that already exists, should pathways be connected with that task force?
I don't think that they should be connected in it, because the whole purpose of that VPI task force, and it should be probably named something else, they wanted to name that so it can match with MDOT stuff. Is to look at the Goose River Bridge. That's like their intent to make sure that the laundry list of the needs that they have in that area are met with that bridge. That's the entire purpose of it.
Okay.
Hey,
the-
Ryan, if you have a microphone in front of you, could you put it a little closer? I don't know if there is
No,
one.
I just have the owl. Is it, can you hear me better
So
now?
what he said is.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Let's just speak up.
okay. So I guess I'm still not clear, like the VPI, you're not clear. All right, what?
No, she's getting me a microphone.
Okay.
So I'm laughing.
So the VPI has this task force for a single purpose, but the VPI can be way bigger than that single task force.
Yes.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, I'm understanding you correctly. Yeah. But what I don't know from DOT is if we can, is if we can have 2 projects going.
Okay,
That part is not clear yet.
there is a pathway that comes into the bridge.
Yeah.
So
But, yeah.
Connection pathways. This point doesn't really go anywhere.
Okay,
One stops, but. Things like that would be something that should be considered. To make sure that pathway doesn't get chopped off. I mean, now it just comes into that little. Part, which then connects to the top of the bridge, I guess, but right there, you would want to make sure that that didn't get chopped off in the process of rebuilding the bridge.
Sure, that's what I'm looking at.
So,
That's a very tight fit for the bridge. So, whether their ports are.
okay, so is it fair to say we should contact Patrick? Because he would understand VPI versus PPI, even though he's in the federal, and whether we should connect with his new replacement person.
Violence. So NGT, they're trying to, like, the whole precipice of this is build a relationship in communities, because before they can have their, we got a plan, get everybody, we're gonna do so. This is to build that relationship back, so that's the whole idea behind it, so by all means,
Okay.
good call.
And then is it also fair to say that it sounds like there's some interest in perhaps seeing if there's some new capacity to consider a pathway, Rockport Camden pathway that might be along the power lines of work that was started 20 years ago, but maybe we didn't have the political will at the time, and maybe under new conditions, like at least exploring that.
Yeah, I think so. And plus you've got a lot of work maybe into the comprehensive planning of what that looks like. Maybe not fully comprehensive, but at least there's a plan. It looks like the DOT rejected it, not because of the plan itself, but because they didn't have the money. I was reading that. a few minutes
Right,
ago.
yeah, there was that one, then here's. I mean, we got $160,000 at one point for studying it all. Pathways, articles approved, whatever.
I can fill in a little bit,
Okay.
if it helps. There was actually almost $500,000 for a design, $250,000, sorry. It was $250,000 awarded to do a design for an off-street multi-use path along Route 90. MDOT was totally psyched to do it. That fell apart because of landowner issues. And the select board in Rockport chose not to pursue that. And then at that point in the process, we even had public meetings and information meetings, planning, designing meetings. After that, there was a scramble to use the remaining $160,000 or so of the $250,000 originally awarded to try to fund another pedestrian application. MDOT was supportive, and that's when we went to Jacobs Quarry and started planning Jacobs Quarry. And that's why that vote for the Linden Lane project occurred. Anyway, that's a very brief summary of 3 or 4 years.
You guys were on such a roll, like, it's like painful to read the old articles.
Yeah.
And,
Can you put that in the Google file?
yeah, I'll just, I'll send you guys.
But, you know, the work exists, so it may not be for nothing. It may be
Right.
that it was just the wrong time, and that would be pretty interesting and exciting.
Design firm quits Pathways Project blames Rockport County Manager. That's 2002.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's like, I have it, I have this all in order. I'll just send you guys a link to the folder and you can. decide.
I have Marge Jones' name on there as a supporter, and, you know, Mari Jones in Rockport is somebody, maybe we could reach out to her to get some support.
Oh, there's Jeff.
There's Jeff, a picture of you.
Oh, look, you
Oh,
look
I'm
younger,
not-
Jeff.
Here, I'll share my screen real quick for Jeff to.
So that's verifying that I wasn't making this up.
Exactly.
Look at.
Yeah, it's all.
Except they spelled your name wrong.
Yeah,
What
they
else
did.
is new? Yeah, I'm sure Jeff Parker had something to do with that.
Huh,
Is that Anita and the yellow? too?
Mm,
I
No,
don't think so.
no.
Huh. Okay, so let's move on. On the agenda, anything, just as we move on, is there anything else about Route 90 or this potential new, at least you have a little seed that's been planted? Anything else to add? Okay. So, Jane asked to put just the whole bike safety of Park Street, and Orion, this is much for you here. And the concern that Park Street, and I haven't been out there, but I do know a couple of people have concerns that it may actually be less safe now than it was.
oh, yeah.
And simply because the shoulders are so much softer, and there's no place, like if a car is coming fast, that a bicyclist can even pull over. So what do we do with that? I don't know, other than I know we've had multiple people make contact about bike safety of the Park Street repavement.
They're not.
We're talking,
done.
we're talking Park Street and Rockport, correct?
All the way up through Camden. Well, I guess it was
It changes names.
It was the.
It changes
yeah.
names. It changes
Changes
names.
names.
Okay.
So I just put that out there. I don't know what we do other than share.
So I had heard that they weren't, because I was like, I can't believe this, and I forget who I talked to, but they said, he was the papers, that they're not done. And because what they need to do is they're letting it harden or whatever, and then they're going back and doing more, and I said, oh, does that mean that so it's not too late? I mean, it would cost more, but because I was thinking about Camden side too, like when we do this, we're gonna make sure that we widen it so that there's a shoulder. I kind of got the impression that they weren't done and that maybe they're,
What's called, skin, like the top layer, they do that next year, it's too late in the season right now,
right.
but making it wider.
I mean, I know would cost way more money, but why? I mean, if there were money, it's certainly possible.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's money, yeah.
Well, I think the
We don't have
other
the money.
thing is,
Mhm.
Park Street.
I mean, it's not budgeted, but there's the budget season, and then there's,
Sure, I mean, we can.
or maybe if Camden Rockport tried to do it together. I know that when we do it in Camden, it's sort of like already on their radar that they should expect to have to widen it. I don't know, it just seemed like it's such an important plate, like it's,
I'm all for
Yeah.
like finding ways to make it back, that's all that stuff, that's not a problem.
yeah,
and I think there's 2 points. One is, if there's this vision at any point that we're gonna get right down and scrape it and get down to a brand new road. Let's, and maybe this is a comprehensive plan issue, which we have on there. That we like automatically think, oh, pathways, let's, even though there's a budgetary implication, let's be a part of the conversation.
Mhm.
The second is, so in that paving, if you look, like the paving is not a straight thing. So if you're a bicyclist, there's like, it just catches you, and then there's a soft shoulder. So I think whoever did the paving, there's some question about, was it done to specs? I guess is the question. And it's not, this is not you, but how do we address that? Because,
Well, so I think that was contracted out, so it wasn't on the spec.
It was the same pavers as has been doing stuff in Camden, Performance Paving.
So,
I mean,
And it's
them
really
being allowed
jaggedy.
to leave it like that, like have this plan to just be like, because it was even worse before. I mean, it really looks strange. And then it all washed down into we got all that rain, and it was like, washing down into the stream, or they should have to go and like compact it or something, or make it a little safer. I'm not,
I live on Park Street and I felt so bad, on not Park Street, on Mount Pleasant, and last year they paved in early October and it was just beautiful right up the mountain. And we got that huge rain during like the 28th, 29th, because it's when we were doing my mother's service. And now we have these giant things that are still there. So you have beautiful pavement and then just these holes. And so when you drive, it's like almost worse than it was, but it's not the pavement's fault. It's the road's fault. And it feels sad when you see beautiful pavement, and so that was the question because of bike safety. On really happy news, Shirt Tail
I was just gonna ask about that.
and Maritime Farms, it looks like it should have always been there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Great job.
and the number of people who are using that walkway, I mean, every day I drive by and there's people walking that walkway.
On where,
From the new going to Maritime Farms, from like Quarry Hill, the brand new route outside the Hannaford.
the people are using that.
People are using it. It looks like it should have always been there, just that they've done a beautiful job of that.
Yeah, it happens so
Installation.
quickly too.
Happened quickly. The grass already needs mowing. It's a really interesting project.
And is
Did they put in the crosswalk at Quarry Hill over to the motel?
The thing, it's not active yet, but the thing is there.
The hardware is all
The
there.
whole hardware is there. The
Yeah,
hardware is
so
to
good.
cross over at Hannaford. It goes all the way up to Country Inn and then it stops.
Yeah,
Their plans
no,
to
it goes,
continue?
it goes beyond the pet store.
Oh, loyal, yeah.
Yeah, Loyal
Basic.
Biscuit.
It based, no, whatever that name is.
Yeah. It stops right there, but there's no plans to continue.
There,
Seems strange.
Jeff, can you, like, we were originally gonna go up to Route 90
End of the street.
on the Rockport side.
yeah, why did that? I've had a bunch of people ask.
Not on this grant, not on this grant.
Yeah, not on this grant.
Not on this grant.
It would have been so much, like, since they're already there working, having them continue it then, it's just so much more expensive to have them come back, and
Especially the same vision, but
I mean, it was just like,
It was tricky. A not so obvious challenge is there's a huge amount of slab, what is it called? Bedrock, ledge that borders, if you head more towards Route 90 on that side of the street, just after Camden Accommodations, that whole thing is ledge for, I don't know, 100 to 300 feet. And it would really have added a huge expense. And so that's why we stopped it. We just didn't feel the political will was there for even, over $1 million.
yeah.
And it was, I think, Orion, you used this term earlier tonight. It's what we looked at, a phased approach. Phase one was that, and we always had on the discussion platter that this is phase one of an ultimate connection to Route 90. So that's why, in fact, which is great that you guys are saying, I thought we were going all the way to Route 90. That's perfect. That's what we want everybody to think, because like, okay, that's phase two.
And it actually, it does look really good, and that it really does, you can envision what it would look like. So you're right, that might be exactly what we need to build that capacity. We should probably send you guys pictures because it really does
Yeah, we'd like to see it.
look like it's been there always in some
Oh,
ways.
gosh, that's great. Boy, that was a
And
long time.
And Shirt Tail is underway.
Well, it will happen, but they have not moved a piece of machinery out there yet, so. I
Oh,
don't
my
think
gosh.
shovel-
No, they did move a bunch of machinery out there, and
Where's the
then
park?
it was like in the bushes, there was a
Oh,
couple
wow.
things, but that
They
they had a problem with, there's some kind of conflict with a water line, and the water company maybe not wanting to move something I don't have the full
Yeah,
update, but they
yeah.
were resolved. It slowed them down a little bit, but they're still, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I drove out there today because I said, God, they look like they're basically done at Maritime Farm.
Right,
There are a few bits and pieces, but
Is the same company doing it?
yeah, and they're really good. They've been really,
they,
professional.
yes, I've been impressed.
Yeah.
I've been impressed with them too.
Sure, I was gonna
The owner of the company, Martin, that's his name spelled. backwards.
I learned that the other day.
But it seems
Yeah,
like they've moved some poles.
They did, they started just a little bit, because a few times I had to wait and I was so excited and there was all kinds of activity there. And then I think they found
Be a lot worse.
the water line, I think it was, in the wrong spot. And because I know that it was, Audra told us in a select board meeting that that she was meeting with them to and the water company, and I think Dave to resolve who had to do what.
So those are good progress. And anything else on Churchill? It looks like,
just to clarify, does that pathway, is it abutting the road, is there distance, is there, I can't recall what that was on the plan.
Sidewalk, it's a sidewalk. Sidewalk.
Just curve
so
up
it should
against
have
the
a
road.
little bit, yeah, curb and then
Okay.
road.
Jeff, what was that little section of sidewalk that's between the tannery and Matthew John? That's like 7 feet wide. Is the reason for that being so wide, was it the vision at one point for that to continue on being wide, or,
I don't know.
oh, you don't?
I don't.
Wouldn't Paul Cartwright know that? Was that during Paul's activity?
Was
I
that
don't
put in
know.
at the same, it seems to be about the same width as that pathway that goes from on Union Street. I didn't know. maybe it
Yeah,
happened at the
it's
same time.
huge. It's huge. I don't know. I don't understand what the rationale was. That didn't happen during my tenure.
Oh,
I
was
think you
before
might
that?
try asking Paul Cartwright.
okay.
Paul might know. It's odd.
I thought I heard something about the decision to make it wider resulted in more expense because of the size of the wall, the height of the wall that had to be put in place, and therefore the pathway was not able to be as long, go up Washington as far as they had intended. That's what I remember hearing about it at the time, but I could be wrong.
Because is there something about the width and not allowing it to be multi-use? Because there's not a great safe area for bikes as well as pedestrians. Is that pathway from Rock on Union Street, is that technically a bike and pedestrian pathway?
Yeah, that was what the attempt was. It was supposed to be. It was never tagged with multi-use, but it was it was what we could do at the time.
Great.
It was
I
early.
think.
Yeah. It was the gosh, the timing of that. It was right around the same time. Sorry,
It
I
just
don't
seems
have.
like maybe if it was wide enough, if it reaching a certain, because sometimes there's not enough room for a sidewalk and enough shoulder for bikes, does that solve a problem when if you make a sidewalk or a pathway, whatever, a certain width, can it then become something that more people and multi-use?
Multi-use is what the tag is. Yeah, and I think they have like a minimum width for that. It's either 6 or 8 feet. I can't remember. That's what that's why when I talk about the Route 90 route, I always try to talk about multi-use.
Yeah,
It's also why the Riverwalk is 8 feet.
yeah. Although I don't know how many mountain bikers there really want. some of that, but.
The thing about the one between Rockport and Camden is that it just ends, and then what are you supposed to do? Because supposedly you're not supposed to bike on the sidewalk, but then the road, the shoulder is so eaten away, there's literally no shoulder, so.
Well, then you get to a point where there literally is no shoulder, and then it widens out again, so it's, and I
We
think
just
that's
kind
the
of
ledge
zigzag
that's,
back and forth, with every legal favor, but
I think
On
that's the
Union Street?
ledge that's really.
on Union.
Coming in.
Yeah,
Oh,
that, it's just, our whole drainage system is collapsing. It's just such a mess. That's a state road because it's
Mm.
old Route 1.
Maybe
And
we
it's-
need sheriffs there at least sometime.
Oh,
That was, yeah, there's not a lot of spare space on that roadway,
Mhm.
and it is a mess.
Yeah,
Having done the sidewalk survey, finally back up there.
is that called Pascal Ave?
No,
What is that?
Pascal's in Rockport off the bridge
Okay,
over to.
so what is Union, what is that?
That's Union.
Union.
but it is, I mean, Pascal is the continuation of that road. It's all,
But when you get to a town line,
Right,
they
right.
change names.
oh yeah, for the minute it's not, right?
Okay,
Union Civil.
so, I'm just gonna put, do we need to consider Sharrows?
The thing there is that it's not painting things on the road there. Well, it's a state road, but it's in such horrid condition, but that would be a good thing to ask, Dave, or ask somebody, what if we know when Union Street is gonna, if there's anything in the works for that, so that we could advocate.
Bayview just got paid, did y'all see it, like thick pavement, and I was just kind of curious why Bayview gets paid versus like a road that gets used all the time.
So I also kind of objected to the paving of Bayview Street, but,
I mean, it's nice to bike on, I love it, but it's just.
it's a town, so that's town, and Union is state.
Oh,
So the rationale about paving Bayview Street was that it's like to try to make it, try to pave it
More like-
before it starts to completely fall apart. Because it was showing sign, there's a lot of water and stuff, so if we let it disintegrate even more, then it reaches, apparently roads can reach a point of no return, where you have to like rebuild the whole road rather than just paving on top.
mhm.
Because I was like, why did Bayview Street get so much attention?
Right,
Yeah, but it was a pretty good explanation.
Gotcha.
Well, just one more plug with the sheriffs in mind on Union Street, is that on Mechanic, it's really great because the lines for the shoulders are, moved in, the shoulders are much wider now.
Mhm.
And so when I ride in there every morning, I have a lot more room. And I think Union Street would be good to have something like that indicated, where that shoulder line is. So at least you can move out a little bit from the grades, drainage.
Mhm. We should ask sort of what the best way is to advocate for things like that on state roads, like
Yeah.
painting patterns on state roads, or I'll ask. Dave.
I've actually talked to MDOT about that,
Oh, good.
because of Route 1, and I was wondering if we could get on the timetable for this current paving of that section, they said no, because the budget's already been set, but their project manager. I want to say his name's Doug Coombs, don't quote me on that, but the project manager in charge of it, he's all game for it, he likes my ability, so. In the next cycle, for when they get their projects up, they'll be talking with us about. Including my plans, or at least discussing what
Oh,
we
great.
did to do it.
That's really great.
So I'm gonna keep on them for that, because I mean, they didn't. I'm sure they didn't write it down anymore, but not to keep updating them.
They can forget those things if somebody doesn't keep
Well,
reminding them.
hopefully, yeah, I mean, hopefully they don't. Change positions
Right.
like with Patrick there, so. But at least with Route 1, they're interested, so if they're interested, they're probably interested elsewhere.
I don't know if somebody already told you guys about this, but we're trying to get them on Route 52 and on 105, just to put in signs. I think maybe it was Doug and Patrick that were involved in this, to get them to put in a sign saying, watch for pedestrians, just ahead of the Bog Bridge. Where Bog Bridge is, where the boat launch is on 105, because they won't let us have a crosswalk there because of the speed limit. They literally put in a boat launch there, and then on the other side is where people park, but no crosswalk allowed because
You
it's
can't get
too,
across, yeah.
because it's too fast. And so we said, how about, can we just have a sign that just alerts people to the idea that there could be pedestrians? And they said that wasn't one of their authorized signs. And Dave wrote this whole thing about experimental traffic, found a thing in their manual that was like how to apply for an experimental traffic like treatment.
That's what was gonna be the crosswalk across from the high school was gonna be experimental.
And so, and then also on Route 52 over by the ledges where people swim. And we wanted other ones that said, watch for pedestrians, and it was, his application was almost funny. It was like, we warn people about the potential for falling rocks, for narrow bridges, for deer crossing, for all of these things. It's just only reasonable to warn drivers that there could be pedestrians they need to look out for too. And they're like, and the signs are finally up, but it was like moving, mountains.
Interesting.
Yay, that's great.
I know, that's what I said. My kids were like, why do you think that's such a big deal, Mom? And I was like, you have no idea. It's just
How long it took.
right.
Bureaucracy.
That's amazing.
So, Orion, this would be, sort of dovetailing into new business, because we're gonna come to a close pretty soon.
Sure.
Rockport's going through their comprehensive planning process, and they have their, input sessions.
Yeah, 2 of Rockports we're following. So we're going around to 3 different ones. I'm actually about to email you all so you can have closer to this. But on September 12th, the West Rockville Baptist Church, we're going to be talking about housing and transportation. So transportation is here. So we have the opportunity from 6 to 7 p.m. be at that meeting. So we can collect your information. September 20th, we'll be at San Jose Resort in the Schooner Room. We'll be talking about.
Oh, was it September 12th?
September 12th for the West Baptist Church, Rockport Baptist Church.
In September,
I'll send you this so you can
Okay.
plug it in if you want to, but just for your reporting, this is September 20th at Sunset Resort. We'll talk about land use issues and business community. And on September 27th, we'll be at the Rockport Masonic Center at Simonton Corner, and we'll be talking about public facilities and services and education. Those will be the 3, and that'll be the last of our public engagement aspect before we kind of conclude and get into the meat of updating the comprehensive plan.
and what was that last date? September?
27th. All of which are 6 to 7 p.m.
So we should see if we can get somebody to that September 12th meeting, which is in a few days.
The September 12th one?
Yes.
I'm probably going. What day is it?
Monday.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be there.
Great. Municipal budget cycles, what do we? This is where we have, Helen has stepped down. She has been our stalwart of knowing the budget cycles for Rockport. Not knowing so much about, but we've got people for Camden. We know that we're moving into budget season. What do we need to have on our radar? And Jeff, maybe you can help us there.
The most effective, most successful way to approach this, I found, is to schedule a meeting with Public Works. The Public Works Director at one of our meetings, invite him to one of our meetings after they have clarity on what they're going to budget, and after we have clarity of what we'd like to advocate for. And in that discussion, there's sort of give and take and an awareness of both sides that occurs. Depending on how the Public Works Director's workload plays out, sometimes they don't have their budgets until just a few days before they're due. So that can be difficult. But if you contact them, or if we contact Public Works and say, hey, we'd like to participate and get a better idea of what you're planning in terms of road building and stuff, so we can create some synergy with what Pathways has in their master plan and what we would like to see going. How does February 1st sound, or how does January 1st sound? So that you can make more consideration during the budget cycle. That's the best shot, I think.
Or ask. I think that
Allison,
sounds
ask
really good.
Allison. Ask Allison too. She's pondering that, and I don't know what she came up with.
I mean, that's just a very light and, you know, it's a moving target, I think. Sometimes by the time they've got their budget figured out, is a little too late.
Yeah.
That's why you
and
try to, yeah.
it's-
Why not ask them when they are, when would be the best time for us to meet together, so that each understands the other's issues before anything's really set in stone in terms of their list of priorities and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends partially on what you're gonna try to advocate for, but the job of a public works director or town manager, all of those things is made much easier if there's a strong sense of like broad public support for something. So they don't enjoy having to pitch things that they believe may be unpopular, or too expensive, or so if there's a feeling that, like, it's very clearly documented that something is coming from the community, and that people are willing to show up and talk about it, it's just a lot easier. Once the budget has been like put into a paper format where it says like, this is the percentage increase you can expect and all of those things, anything else is like a nice add-on at that point. So I don't know, I think it's different things for different places, but.
Just for clarity, Allison, I wasn't advocating to have the budget of a paper budget that says this percentage increase and blah, blah. It was before that. It was more like when Dave or is it Mike in Rockport are starting to think about 2023, that's when we want to talk to them, not when they're actually have done their budgets, but when they start thinking about it. No, it would be way too late, because by the time that happens, it's like the night before that they're doing their final things.
Can I ask a question? Like, it seems like all of Knox County is being paid this summer. And is that stuff that was budgeted, or is that opportunity because of like the infrastructure bill and all of a sudden there's all this money? Was all of that?
Everything you're seeing right now has been budgeted in some, I would say that's true for the state, it's true for the towns.
Wow, I'm impressed. There's a lot of pavement going.
I think that's COVID. I think that's COVID money from a year or two ago.
Oh, the other
That's
one thing.
Economic stimulus.
Yeah, okay, stimulus.
Camden, I know, is looking for, speaking of, I'm so glad you said about Knox County, not that this is gonna be a quick return on time investment, but we need a budget committee member for the Knox County Budget Committee. They have a lot of like power, actually, believe it or not, and the person who's doing it, it's something you have to get on the ballot for. Be worth looking into that for Rockport too. In the past,
Who has it been?
it's been Randy Stearns.
Oh, okay. I know it was a familiar name, but
Yeah, and so he's not doing it anymore, but, you know, a lot of that money that comes through the county, a lot of the like regional transportation planning that really should be happening would be, you know, at the county level. Historically, Knox County certainly has been very like anti-planning. They try to, it'll be like they try to save money by not hiring a planner are not, spending money on any of that kind of stuff, but be good if we could get people into those positions that would advocate for this type of thing. Is Bob Duke, is it Bob Duke in Rockport,
For Knox County?
Knox
I
County
don't-
Budget Committee? That'd be worth following up on.
Well,
What's the best way to advocate for budget things in Rockport?
So, I'm gonna double check with, Megan, but we need to have a work plan, like a one work plan for like a general committee. This one's a little different because we got 2 municipalities. But generally, you have a work plan, you have one work plan, then you highlight the items that you need to purchase and go into your next year's budget. So. This one's different. I'll get to Megan and see how we handle this one in the past, how we have handled it.
Which actually moves us to, we do have the 2022 pathway project planning map. Although I didn't see on here any of the Route 90, Jeff, which was a question for you. We have Route 1 and Maritime and, but it seemed like this was maybe the Camden project planning.
What does it say at the top?
As Pathways Committee Project Planning 2022.
Not Camden, not Rockport?
No, but it looks like it's all Camden.
Yeah, there would have to be one planning document for each. I sent one to each select board. Looking now, hang on.
I
But
think you double sent
I hope
the Camden one.
oh, are you looking on the shared drive? Or,
No, I'm looking on the, well, what you sent is an email. You sent two attachments, but they were the same.
oh my,
No worries. So, but anyway, I guess, Orion, we've got a planning document for Camden. And so I guess the question is, one of the things about Pathways is it's kind of moved between budgetary entities. Like sometimes we're with Parks and Recs and sometimes we're with Public Works. And so we don't actually sit in Rockport in any like consistent place.
Sure.
We're kind of like the orphan child, whoever
I mean, it's just about every committee, every committee has their hope.
they get passed around.
Oh, yeah.
So the question is, where do you think our planning document would like best?
It's Public Works,
Okay,
in my opinion, Superline says.
Yep. So we would need to make sure that at least our planning documents get to Mike and Dave.
Just make sure CC me on them, so.
Okay.
Included.
this is the one I was thinking you were working from. That should say Town of Rockport Committee Work Plan.
No.
That's not it?
Oh,
You can-
I don't have that. I haven't, in fact, I haven't even seen that. I've seen the Camden one. So that would be great if you could drop that in the shared doc.
Sure, you can see there's Maritime and Route 90. This was done
Not
last
quite a
year.
year ago, yeah.
Yeah, more than a year ago.
So
Okay,
we'll share that with Mike Young and Orion, so that those would be important going into as well as it would be good for you to see and for all of us to see. So we'll have our Camden one and we might even update that a little bit if we get any traction with any of the conversation from tonight around looking at VPI, PPI, and the power line. So if anything there is going to get revived.
yeah, that would be a change in our focus. We'd have to look at that. I look forward to that conversation. That's a long one, Margot. That's where our focus is for the next 5 years.
Is there anything else that's on people's thoughts that we haven't touched base on?
I have two things. One is a quick question. How many people wrote to the select board or from Rockport about what they thought priorities should be in their Rockport Select Board meeting of priorities. We had talked about people advocating. Anybody? Did anybody?
No,
We're all shaking heads.
Everybody's
Okay.
like crawling under the table, Jeff.
Yeah, Allison, you got your one, the one from me, I hope. I sent them to everybody.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the kind of action that we need to do. That's part of our responsibility. We had all said that, yeah, that's a good idea. We should have our voices independent, not as a committee voice to these and advocate as members of our community. So please do that. It's a hard thing. You have to sit down and do it. It's why I shared it with you, so you could maybe just copy and send it in again, but nobody did. The second question I have is, Allison, this is sort of directed at you, and we've been exchanging here a little bit. What do you think? I believe that on the next, on our next meeting, I'd like to add the stop and go intersection discussion. I think Pathways should add a voice into that discussion, what MDOT is offering to fund the reconstruction of that, and they have 4 or 5 different alternatives that they're looking at. And I think we need to add our voice into the mix. Allison, is there a timeline? Is it rushing along?
So I definitely agree with you there, Jeff, that it would be worth, I think also, you know, first maybe connecting with Patrick too. I do believe in that federal position, I'm pretty sure he would still help with this too. But yeah, they made, there's nothing really that's come out of that. I tried to encourage a workshop with DOT. We talked about that in a select board meeting that might happen. I should ask for an update on that. I was trying to hoping that we could actually get everybody to go out there with DOT, look at the actual site. It often feels like when we're in the select board meeting room, not everybody, you know, it's just hard to really have a sense of what we're talking about. But helping to have everybody sort of at least on the same page about what the problem is there, we definitely need some help with that. And so having the Pathways Committee really kind of literate on at least the fact that there is a problem there. This is what it, you know, this is what it is. These are the places where people from wheelchairs can't, you know, get from point A to point B, or that I think part of the problem in the presentation with the select board was that it was too short, and the problem wasn't really well articulated at the beginning, because some people understand it so well. But
Do we have
I
time?
think that's a great
Allison?
agenda. Yeah, because I don't get the sense that it's moving really fast, and it's not the opportunity is going to be missed if we don't jump on it. And it will be one of those all change is controversial. So it would be good if the Pathways Committee could take a hard look at that. We're
Great.
talking about the stop and go intersection.
Stop and go intersection, yeah, in
And even-
Camden. Yeah, I'd like that on the next meeting, and I've spent quite a bit of time looking at it, and I might be able to tee off the discussion for us. So that's my comment, Margot.
that'd be great. Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff, could you I had sent that to you. Do you want to maybe send that presentation to the rest of the committee too?
Yeah, I will, absolutely. I'll forward it to, anyway, I went to that meeting and listened to the presentation, and it was very difficult. But Patrick did send us what he worked from, the actual data, and I have questions about it and the way it was presented. And I'll see if I can get answers to those. It is you need to allocate at least an hour. For me, it was almost 2 hours to understand what was going on. And the more time I spent on it, the better I understood what the issues were. I can't imagine trying to digest this in 15 or 20 minutes. There's no way.
I mean, I think a lot of the presentation too was geared not toward defining what the pedestrian problem was, but like understanding the traffic flow and trying to, because they know that that's the question that's going to come up is traffic flow. And so they just jump right into that of like all of the data surrounding surrounding
Yeah.
that, but yeah, it's not the right presentation for everyone.
Anyway, yeah, so
Jeff, can you
That's it.
send the Rockport plan, the plan of work again? Because.
yeah, I'll do that. I'm gonna send it around and I'm gonna put it on the shared drive.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. I was pinch hitting.
Thank you, Margot. You were awesome.
You did fine.
The fumes were